Well, hello and welcome to the Light Reading Podcast. I'm Jeff Baumgartner, a senior editor at Light Reading.
Hi, I'm Christian Nascimento, Senior Vice President of Connectivity and Digital Customer Solutions at Comcast Business.
Hey, Christian, welcome to the podcast. It's good to connect with you once again. Yeah, I think back in the day, we used to see each other at least once a year, back when Light Reading did the annual Cable Business Services event in New York City. So
that's right. Did that a couple of times. Thanks for having me, Jeff. Great to see you.
Yeah, so I think it's good that we're getting a chance to catch up a bit today on what you and Comcast Business have been working on. So I think we're going to center on some recent news is kind of our hook into talking today. So Comcast Business recently announced this expansion of the dedicated internet solution with symmetrical speeds and service level agreements. It's been a little while since we've had a chance to talk to you about this kind of stuff. So maybe it'd be good to start off with the strategic focus there and also explain a little bit what dedicated internet means in this context, versus just a traditional internet access line.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. We did launch our expansion of our dedicated internet product. Very excited about that. That is an opportunity for us to take a lot of the core network enhancements that Elad Nashi and team have been driving over the past few years. You've heard about mid-splits and DOCSIS 4.0. It's our opportunity to take a lot of that innovation and really help deliver it directly to commercial customers. So we take a step back. Dedicated internet, kind of different from broadband in that broadband is traditional internet. It's almost like being on a road where there's lots of cars, and depending on how many cars there are, that may affect your traffic, right? That may cause some congestion, may slow it down because you're sharing bandwidth with others. In dedicated internet access, on that hand, is like having your own private express lane. It's a direct, guaranteed connection between the business and the internet. So there's no congestion, there's no sharing, there's no slowdown during peak times or off-peak times. It's a guarantee that connection will exist for that business. It's faster, it's more reliable, it's got symmetrical speeds, and it also has SLAs or service level agreements that we put in place. So it's important really important for businesses, particularly when you think about things like cloud applications, edge compute, downloading, transferring files, video conferencing, all the things that in this post-COVID digital transformation world are really important to businesses. The reason that we're so excited about the recent expansion is because we've done this over both fiber and HFC in the past. When we've done it over fiber, obviously there's multi-gigabit symmetrical speeds that can be available. When we've done it over HFC using a technology called BSOD or Business Services over DOCSIS, we've typically been limited, and we also offered symmetrical speeds in that scenario, but we've typically been limited by limitations around DOCSIS upstream. With what the team has done with the network, around mid-splits, we're able to kind of vastly increase the speeds. And so 100, 200, 300 meg symmetrical, we can now do on our HFC plants. We've also, because of all the innovations that's happened in the network, we're able to offer those SLAs, that 4.9 availability, proactive monitoring, which is really key for a business to make sure that the network's being monitored. And so because of that, we're able to vastly expand how we can offer this. So in summary, same features and SLAs, whether it's on HFC or fiber, but vastly available to more businesses because of the reach of our HFC plant, and not having to go do fiber construction every time we need to deploy it.
Okay, and one quick question on the HFC side in terms of being able to provide kind of that dedicated internet capability. So, and not doing the shared environment like you would with a traditional broadband service. So do you have to nail up like bandwidth specific to that, or is this like an Ethernet thing? I just want to understand kind of technically, how do you handle that on the HFC side particularly?
Yeah, it's Ethernet. So it's essentially it's Ethernet over HFC. So we use BSOD to reserve the bandwidth
Okay.
flows. So they're dedicated lines that way. And then we leverage the network innovations around mid splits and DOCSIS 4.0 for those symmetrical speeds and those faster symmetrical speeds. And then again, lots of work around making sure that we have commonality in the features, SLA, proactive monitoring, that's the same on HFC as it is on the fiber plant.
Okay, so you have some uniformity across whatever access network you're using. Okay.
Yeah, the idea is that dedicated internet access will be dedicated internet access, and whether the underlay is fiber or the underlay is HFC, everything else will look exactly the same to the customer.
Okay. All right. And how do service level agreements fit into the equation right now? For example, I'm on a business services account at home, for my home office, but I don't think I have an SLA. So I just, I think it's kind of best effort, even though it's a business account. But I was curious to kind of know what the scenarios are when, where SLAs fit. Is that for SMBs and enterprise, or is it more enterprise focused and medium size? Kind of where does that fit in right now?
Yeah, so it's a great question. The SLAs really come in based on the product. And so if it's a dedicated internet product, that they come with SLAs, 4 nines, at least 4.9 of availability that we guarantee. And we do the proactive monitoring on the network so that we can ensure that the customer is getting that. So if you don't have SLAs in your home office, you probably have our broadband product or our business internet product. And so that has service level objectives. So it's objectives that we aspire to hit, and that we feel comfortable that we can hit, but they're not SLAs that are contracted and guaranteed. Those are really focused on the dedicated internet product. So the product, the majority of our focus has been on the enterprise side, multi-site businesses, complex businesses. But, if a small business wanted dedicated internet, and we do see them every month buy it, they certainly can get that, and they would get those SLAs that way.
Okay. And I did want to talk a little bit about like traffic patterns or usage patterns right now, right? You had mentioned the one of the enhanced capabilities you have, particularly on the HFC side, will be a higher capacity upstream, now that you have mid splits out there on the HFC network. I think we've seen some studies that kind of show a general look at consumer broadband consumption, and everything's going up. We still see an incline on downstream, but also on the upstream side. Now, are you on the business side? Are you seeing, now that we're a few years beyond, the early parts of the pandemic, when upstream traffic spiked a little bit, but do you still see kind of a gradual increase on the upstream because of cloud services, or I'm thinking a lot more.
Yep.
Stuff like we're doing today, a lot more video conferencing and other things that require, more upstream.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that there's still, the great thing about our industry is that, connectivity kind of fuels, the world, right? Whether you're a consumer or commercial customer. And so I think patterns, may look a little different holistically. We may not see different peak times that we did pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, because now more people are working from home. Schools are more likely to have a virtual day versus a snow day. And so you don't see that like from 9 to 5, it's in an office complex, and from 6 to 11, it's at home. It's a little bit more kind of distributed throughout from a peak time, but the bandwidth needs from both a downstream and upstream standpoint are all increasing, and that's just to your point. We're on a Zoom type conferencing solution right now. It looks like you're here real time in the room with me, right? Like we're the bandwidth is working, latency is working. But business has changed, and there's more and more of this, whether people are across the country from each other or in the same office complex. They're utilizing video conferencing more because it's just better than an audio conference, right? They're uploading and downloading files more. There's more compute happening in different places. And so, we see continual increasing need for both downstream and upstream.
Okay, great. And then maybe it's the Ethernet connection here, but now since dedicated internet is made available, whether it's HFC or fiber, so what is that underlying bedrock or foundation, I guess, that spans the different access network types, right? Because the enhancements need to be made, to both instances. So yeah, is it Ethernet or is it for the BSOD? What was the
BSOD,
the acronym? Yeah, is that the enabler? I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the enabler. I really, when I take a step back, the enabler for me is the network, right? The fact that, with all the network evolution around, what we call Project Genesis, our mid splits, and moving into DOCSIS 4.0, the virtualization of the CMTS, that has created this environment where, we've used BSOD or business services over DOCSIS for like 15 years, right? Like that's a technology that's existed. Other MSOs have used that as well. For me, the kind of bedrock is that network evolution, is that driving towards DOCSIS 4.0. It's making sure that the network is using AI to self-heal and identify fiber cuts and balance and do load balancing and manage capacity. And so that we are in a situation where the network can handle increased traffic, increased speeds at the site, at the premise level. It can do all this great stuff. And we've built into it the proactive monitoring to show that we can handle, near 100% reliability based on everything that we just talked about, like virtualization, the AI built into the network. So that's really like the bedrock to me. The consistency or the commonality, like I said, across both fiber, HFC, whichever underlay we deliver the product on, is those features, the SLAs that we wrap around it. And so making sure that same experience you get on HFC is the same experience you get on fiber. That's kind of, for us, that's like paramount to the experience. But again, we had about 250,000 fiber lit buildings, and so if you wanted Ethernet, you go to one of those buildings, or you have to go do construction, which can be not just costly but time consuming. Now you've lit up more than 1 million buildings because of our HFC plant where mid splits are. And then we're doing some serviceability work and expansion to increase that number threefold. It just gives us the ability to rapidly get to the customer and meet them with whatever solution they need. But at the end of the day, consistent features across both underlays.
Okay. And we've talked a little bit about 4.0 DOCSIS, something that we've been trying to track. And, I think Comcast, has the ongoing deployment of 4.0 and probably the only operator out there that's deploying 4.0 at any sort of scale. But we know that obviously it adds more speed, more capacity, symmetrical multi-gigabit speeds on the horizon. And I think in low latency is another aspect that is fitting in. So when you kind of put all that together, what are you most excited about as 4.0 gets rolled out, particularly on the business services side?
Yeah. I guess generally I'm really excited about DOCSIS 4.0 overall for what it can do for the company and the industry just in general. From a business services standpoint specifically, I'm excited about the whole portfolio because, the DOCSIS 4.0 will help us with both our broadband and our dedicated internet product. So from broadband, you will have the ability for the low latency DOCSIS, you'll improve the latency and capacity, but we'll be able to just vastly, augment our speed portfolio. To your point, DOCSIS 4.0 will give us the ability for multi-gigabit symmetrical speeds on the HFC plant. And so that will be beneficial to our broadband portfolio. But when you think about dedicated internet, the fact that we'll be able to use the 4.0 plant to offer multi-gigabit symmetrical speeds just continues to close the gap in areas where we have to make a choice between fiber or HFC. A lot of our customers, aren't taking the 400 gigs that we have to use fiber for. They're in the 1-2 gig symmetrical area. And so if we can do that on the 4.0 plant, that just gives us a lot of flexibility in the underlay that we use. So I'm very excited and bullish on DOCSIS 4.0 in general. I think a lot of the team are doing some amazing work there. And I think it's going to help, the entire portfolio on the commercial side, especially.
Okay. And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but, the use of AI in the network. And we know that particularly on the 4.0 side, that AI is getting built into the chips and the modems and the amplifiers, in the nodes. I think Elad Nashi has talked a lot about, the why and the how and the benefits for that. I guess on the business services side, I imagine it's all the same, but maybe you can talk a little bit more about how you see the role of AI evolving, particularly on your side of it with serving businesses.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that's hugely on our minds, right? AI, we're in this fourth industrial revolution with AI. And so when you think about our customers, particularly the big enterprise customers, big global enterprises, but also, smaller businesses too, smaller one-site businesses, they're all thinking about, they're still in the midst of their digital transformation. And now they're thinking about how does AI factor into that? And so we have AI threaded throughout everything we do at CB, just because we think it's really important that our customers are going to come to us and look to us for advice on how to navigate this. And so we think it's important for us to have a perspective. I really think about AI in like three distinct ways when it comes to Comcast Business. One is the stuff you just talked about from a network standpoint. I think Elad, to your point, has talked about this a lot and what AI can do and is doing for the network, but it's created this self-healing network that we have that can identify fiber cuts, that can balance capacity, and it just helps us manage the network just overall. I think there's also AI that's being used in really novel ways on identifying cyber threats and cybersecurity risks. And so all of that combines to have this powerful network that we deliver to our customers. And so that's kind of like the first way I think about it is how do we just continue to drive that innovation in the network, make that network better than anything else because we're leveraging AI to do it. Beyond that, it's how do we get our people here at Comcast Business thinking about it, using it, making sure that we're as efficient as possible, whether it's in like the software development lifecycle or whether it's in, drafting, communications to customers, but just getting familiar with it so that when our customers come to us and, need perspective or want to talk about it, that we have that familiarity deep into our organization. And then the final piece is, products and services. So, AI built into the network will help us deliver connectivity. It can also help us, as I mentioned, fight cyber threats. We have just a ton of data points at customer locations, particularly our enterprise customers. And so you can use AI ops to start deliver, proactive notifications and take actions on their network to help them maintain their uptime and maintain their productivity. And so, there's really like a lot that can be done with it. And we're kind of focused on those three areas and making sure that we drive value to the customer base.
Okay. Well, one area I wanted to talk, maybe a particular use case, right? I know we're talking a lot about speeds and connectivity and, reliability, those sorts of things. But it wasn't that long ago you worked with Machine Q, which is another Comcast company focused on, is it enterprise IoT? Is that the correct way to think about them? Right. But to talk about, yeah. So, but it was looking through the announcement, it had to do with like fan engagement around the Players Championship in areas like IoT, advanced Wi-Fi, low latency. Um, Talk a little bit about what you did there, some of the advancements you had, and what the kind of what the results were. Right? Was that all on the course, or was it also for viewers that were
Yeah.
tuned in to watch the event?
Yeah, it was a great example. So, this year we sponsored the Comcast Business was a premier sponsor of the players. This is our second year doing that. It was really an amazing showcase for all of Comcast Business and Comcast in general. In the example that you're referring to with Machine Q, what we did is we utilized some of the Machine Q weather sensors that they have. Machine Q, for folks that aren't aware, is our enterprise IoT business unit here at Comcast. They do sensors, that use low latency connectivity that can identify motion, can identify humidity, weather, things like that. And so we deployed some Machine Q IoT weather sensors, throughout the course, and that information, along with other information, fed into a fan experience that we developed specifically for the players, specifically for the fans that were at the event. Developed that along with some of our colleagues from Sky, and it was called Game the Green. And what it did, it allowed fans to predict where a drive would land on the 17th hole, that iconic 17th hole at Sawgrass. And so what we did is we built this interface that gamified all the data that we had on site. It gamified the players that are hitting onto the 17th, factored in the weather, factored in, wind, all those types of things from the Machine Q sensors. All of that fed into this immersive fan experience that we built for players. So it was a great example and a fun example of a use case that demonstrates the power of our partnership model, how we can bring technology and other players to bear. And we can really do that in any solution. Part of the power of Comcast Business is our partnership model, so that if a customer comes, in this case, it was TPC Sawgrass, but it could be a retail customer, it could be financial services, whoever. If a customer comes and needs X, most likely we have a solution for that. If we don't, have something that's ready off the shelf, we can go and partner. And when we partner, because of the scale that we have and the way that we do partnerships, we're able to get folks to do things for us that they may not do for other people. And so we really focus on not just providing a solution, but building it into the broader solution that we're providing to a customer. So the players' Game the Green experience was like a really fun example, but like when you zoom out, that just shows like our partner mindset and how we just do partnerships really well and provide value to customers of all sizes.
Yeah. So some good learnings there, and you said you can apply this in other types of settings if you needed to. Yeah, other sporting events. You said retail.
Yeah, it's extendable. So it's software you can change what the end gamification is, but like all those data points, it's wind, weather, people on the course, just give people a fun example of how to go gamify something like that.
Okay, great. And I think to wrap up for today, I did want to talk a little bit about mobile and wireless. Obviously convergence and the bundling of home broadband and mobile is important to the Comcast residential business. But from where you are, how is wireless and mobile fitting into your portfolio? And I guess even satellite, right? Because I think there's a Starlink partnership that was announced, a while back, to hit some areas where maybe, there's no wireline connectivity, but, maybe just on the convergence side, how is that coming together for business services?
Yeah. I would say, mobile and wireless and converged connectivity, really a critical component of our portfolio and commercial services, right? So mobile, Comcast Business Mobile, just a really big growth opportunity for CB, particularly in the small business segment. And we're really just getting started in that space, compared to the residential side of the house. But big focus of ours, lots of innovation happening there. But wireless has been important to us for years. I mean, LTE, whether it's a primary site like you mentioned, the Starlink example, like a digital desert where we can't get a wired line connectivity in enterprise, we do have LTE as a primary solution that we'll offer. But, broadly, LTE backup, having a Wi-Fi enabled backup solution, and that's across all of our segments. Our Connection Pro product and small business, and then up through enterprise as well. That's a core part of our offering because we mentioned that connectivity is really kind of table stakes. Businesses can't go down, right? If it's retail, then they can't take credit card transactions, and nobody carries cash anymore, apparently.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And but even like a law firm probably has to meet with clients over Zoom or Teams, and so connectivity is critical, and so having a backup solution really important. And so when I think about a converged network, I think what Comcast Business is doing is probably the best in class between our broadband backed up by LTE and extended by mobile. So the use case is if you're a small business customer and you've got all these solutions, if broadband goes down for whatever reason, whether it's power or an outage, you flip over to LTE backup and you continue to run without missing a beat, flips over automatically. And then you have Comcast Business Mobile. You have connectivity there. The convergence there comes from when you leave the building and you connect to a Comcast hotspot, you get a gig boost to make sure you have the best mobile experience possible. This is like bringing all the components like DOCSIS, the wireline solution, LTE, mobile, all into one converged solution. I think it's pretty compelling for our customers.
Yeah. It's interesting to kind of see how it all is coming together. Like, everybody's kind of focused on this convergence play, right now. So it'll be something fun to keep an eye on to see how that evolves. So
and I don't think it's just and it's the convergence isn't just connectivity too. When we think about our product, our customer solutions portfolio, we think about underlay, overlay, and customer experience. That's all converging, right? When you think about overlay, you think about secure networking and cybersecurity, but that's, in a lot of ways, that's core to connectivity, making sure that the connection is protected and secure. And so, convergence is really happening, throughout the entire product portfolio, I think.
Yeah. And I even think about even the, when you're talking about HFC or fiber, it's like, you're able to, it's almost like the access network kind of becomes agnostic, in terms of how you can serve customers these days. So,
that's exactly how we think about it, right? Like we know customers want features, we know they want SLAs, and then it's just a question of which underlay. And even HFC is a converged network; it's hybrid fiber coax.
Right. Yeah. Good point. And a lot more fiber in there than I think maybe you get credit for. Yeah. So.
100%. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Well, great. Well, it was great to, we covered a lot of ground, but I think that's where we'll leave it for today. So, Christian, it was great to have you on the podcast. Glad I had a chance to catch up with you.
Jeff, thanks for having me. It was awesome.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Talk to you soon. All right.
Take care.